Right now, deep underwater, there are killers, submarines with the power to change the world. The men aboard them spend months at a time in a metal can, hoping they'll never receive an order that means only one thing: the end of civilization. The crews that work on the Ohio-class boomer subs are some of the most highly trained sailors in the U.S. military. What they do, where they go, even what a day at work is like, is a tightly guarded secret. For roughly 70 to 80 days at a time, they vanish, not even able to tell their spouses or girlfriends where they are or what they're doing. Ask one of the crew what their job is and they'll just tell you they preserve peace. It sounds good on paper, but they know that if they ever use the weapons on board, they won't be going home. There won't be a home left. But beyond threats of global destruction, the job itself is incredibly hard. These boats often operate hundreds of meters below the surface. The men are trapped. A crew of around 155 spends weeks at a time in cramped areas surrounded by pipes and dials, an endless array of switches and gauges, and they are never far from a weapon. Wherever they sleep, eat, or use the toilet, missile tubes are just feet away. When they retreat to their curtained-off bunk, they're never sure if they'll be jolted awake by a drill or worse, the news that the homeland is under attack. On this submarine, the work never stops. The crew are usually woken around 45 minutes before their shift begins. They get dressed and they have their first meal of the day. Whether that's breakfast, lunch, or dinner will depend on the rotation. After 6 hours, they'll be relieved, but after more food, there might be cleaning duty, maintenance, training, or meetings. On paper, it's 6 hours on, 6 hours off, but in reality, you're never really off. By the time they get back to their bed, they are exhausted. 6 to as many as 34 men will sleep in 3-tier bunks that are stuffed together in a room like sardines in a tin. Their worldly belongings packed into a small shelf. Only the captain and a few officers have a private cabin. For the rest, subs make prison cells look spacious. Privacy ends at the curtain. There's no space for a gym, so men do pull-ups on pipes or push off against walls. They find spaces to lift dumbbells and use exercise bikes and treadmills. The crew's mental health is a top priority. The reason why food on boomers is better than anywhere else in the U.S. military. The Navy chefs cook up a storm, feeding men in what looks like a diner from the 1950s. It's one of the only places where they have space to move around freely and chat about life. Burgers, apple pie, Italian food, and tacos, the crew of the boomers is well taken care of. Still, you can't forget about spending time alone with your thoughts. One man's snoring is another man's nemesis. Thankfully, the men work in rotation. About a third of the crew will be asleep at any given time, making the sleeping quarters less noisy and more private. At the end of the room is the bathroom shared by all the men in those sleeping quarters. The submarine shower usually means getting wet for 10 seconds, turning the water off to soap, and then turning it back on for 10 seconds to rinse, using around 4 gallons of fresh water total for a 1 to 2 minute shower. Taking a long time in the shower or on the toilet is not tolerated. On a submarine, you follow the rules. It's all for one and one for all. And that's why the men maintain good hygiene standards. They have to. Smelling bad or looking disheveled is bad for everyone else's morale. There's a tiny space where a crew member acts as the submarine barber. These days, there are often women on board too, but of course they don't sleep alongside the men. Separate berthing areas are one reason submarines were slow to use mixed crews, but it is still mostly a man's world under the ocean. Boomers are massive multi-deck machines. The upper levels house command spaces like control and communications. The middle areas include crew messes and living spaces, and the lower sections are packed with engineering systems, missile compartments, and propulsion machinery. When the ship is ready to dive, the order will come to submerge. The sub weighs thousands of tons, about 18,000 when submerged, but that doesn't mean they just sink. Filled with air, they are buoyant, displacing enough water to float like a steel island. To submerge, large ballast tanks are opened and seawater floods in. That increases the submarine's density and it can dive. You obviously don't want a submarine banking too hard, or worse, losing control, but that just doesn't happen. Subs do sometimes perform steep angles to test systems or in emergencies, but anything over 30 degrees is extreme. So the added bonus about life on a submarine is that you don't get seasick. As for propulsion, they can reach about 20 knots submerged. The reactor produces heat and the water becomes high-pressure steam. That steam spins turbines, and those turbines turn the submarine's propeller, pushing it silently through the ocean. The steam is then cooled back into water and reused in a closed loop. Because no oxygen is needed, they can keep going indefinitely. Maintenance, food stocks, and the crew's sanity are the only reasons they come to port, not a lack of fuel. But what about breathing? Well, the nuclear reactor supplies electricity, and that is how a machine can split seawater into hydrogen and oxygen. electrolysis. The oxygen is released into the sub, and the hydrogen is dumped overboard. And then you have machines that remove carbon dioxide from the air using special chemicals, so the crew doesn't get poisoned. Subs also carry backup oxygen in their tanks or chemical candles that can provide breathable oxygen. Subs move through the pitch black of the ocean, which can be brutal, months without sunlight or wind on your face, but these machines are made for stealth, not comfort. They glide through the water, barely making a sound because of noise reduction engineering. That kind of technology doesn't come cheap. Boomers cost around $2 billion to build when the Ohio class was first designed, but that would be closer to $4 billion today. Part of that cost is their destructive potential. Much of it is in the technology that allows them to navigate, detect, track, aim, and survive, all while remaining hidden from sonar, visual observation, and just about everything else. In silent mode, they are even quieter. Men aren't even supposed to talk loudly. There are times on a submarine when all you can hear is the constant whirring of fans or buzzing of electrical equipment. Other than orders to end the world, the one thing submariners fear is fire. Even a small fire in such a confined space can fill compartments with toxic smoke, and there is nowhere for it to go. If a serious fire breaks out, there may be nowhere to run. A blaze in one section of the boat could damage propulsion, navigation, or life support systems, leaving more than 100 people trapped deep under the sea. 118 men were lost when a fire broke out on the Russian nuclear submarine K-141 Kursk in 2000, condemning it to the seabed. The crew won't feel scared when they're underwater, but unfamiliar loud noises or the smell of smoke will certainly get a man's attention. And these aren't regular submarines, they are nuclear ones. If a fire were to spread into the reactor compartment, the very worst-case scenario would involve radiation. As it stands now, though, the crew on nuclear subs are not subjected to dangerous levels of radiation, and fire and leaks are highly unlikely because reactor spaces are heavily isolated and have lots of safety systems around them. Still, crew members are constantly drilled on fire response and containment. Before a submariner can get the insignia of a submarine to pin to their uniform, they must earn their fish, also known as getting your dolphins. That partly means every last one of them must qualify as a first responder. Breaches, fires, flooding, toxic gas, a man collapsing, clutching his chest, everyone on board is expected to know what to do. Not only will those sailors know about nuclear propulsion and complex systems, but they'll also be able to step into the role of a medic or a firefighter at the drop of a hat. If things get serious, parts of the submarine can be converted into a makeshift operating theater. A duty hospital corpsman, the doc, will be on board, but he is not prepared to give you heart bypass surgery. Anything serious will mean the submarine has to surface or rendezvous, something they really don't like doing. A former boomer crewman said online that in the 2.5 years and 5 patrols he served, his boat broke radio silence just once when a crewman developed appendicitis. Then there are viruses too, which on a submarine will be shared around. One sailor said colds and other minor illnesses cycled sometimes 2 to 3 times. It's not just physical issues you have to worry about. Down here, every small psychological problem has nowhere to go. Extreme confinement, isolation, artificial lighting, and a massive lack of privacy can take a toll on the mind. Mental health is a serious concern for submariners. Especially among the newbies, the risk of anxiety or depression is high. That is one reason selection standards are so strict. Only a few thousand sailors each year make it to the nuclear submarine force. Even so, submarine crews are constantly evaluated. Signs of serious psychological distress are taken seriously. You really don't want a man losing his mind underwater. If that happens, they'll be disembarked at the first opportunity and likely won't ever come back. New arrivals, known on board as pukes or nubs, non-useful bodies, are like children entering a new world where the adults don't pull their punches. Each job is specialized, but every submariner must understand how the entire ship works. A torpedo technician won't know the reactor the way an engineer does, but everyone must understand the basics of every system. The faster you learn, the more respect you'll get. That first year is very tough, so you can forget having much downtime and anyone treating you with kid gloves. One former submariner put it like this: "You are breathing my air, eating my food, and filling my sanitary tanks. Get qualified, nub." The reason for all this seriousness is obvious. Submarines demand everyone works in tandem like a finely tuned machine, and let's not forget that boomers are equipped with Trident II ballistic missiles. Even way down in the ocean, those missiles can reach targets around 7,000 miles away. Launch authority rests entirely with the president, and after that, everyone has a job to do. The commanding officer cannot act alone. There are strict nuclear safeguards and authentication procedures, so multiple officers work together before anyone dies. Someone will announce "standing by for fire order," followed by confirmation such as "concur with fire order." These sequences are practiced again and again, something no one on board ever wants to perform for real. After launch, there is nothing to do but stay submerged and wait. But if a strike ever did go ahead, a Trident II would re-enter the atmosphere traveling as fast as Mach 24, or over 18,400 miles per hour. It'll then break up into 8 independent re-entry vehicles, and each one of those carries between a 100 and 475 kiloton nuclear warhead. Within 1 minute, the commander could order a salvo of 192 warheads, enough to turn 24 cities into ruins. Meanwhile, the men on that submarine will know that for everything they're firing, Americans in their homes will no doubt be receiving. Between all of the boomers, there are around 240 missiles active, with almost 1,100 warheads, enough destructive power to pull the plug on civilization. To get through stress like that, many men spend months underwater like monks in a monastery. There is certainly no social media for distraction. For fun, you might play cribbage or chess over dinner of salmon and oxtail soup. There will be books to read too, usually in your bed under a fluorescent light. When movies are scheduled to be watched in the mess, it's often through a projector, and the films get repeated. Free time on the submarine is not like having time off in the regular world. It's like living at work, and you're expected to be ready 24 hours a day if called upon. As one boomer crew member said online, time off needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. At some point, there will be morale-boosting events, maybe pizza or surf and turf day, maybe even frozen lobster. They work hard, but they're treated well for having one of the most important jobs in the world. And at least they can tell their wife and kids they're alive. Submariners are allowed to send emails home to let family know they're okay, but those messages are heavily monitored. On missions, there are no emails. If tension builds, they exercise. If they're overwhelmed, they often keep it to themselves. But ships usually have a spouses group or someone who can counsel them. This constant pressure is one reason submariners will tell you that being likable and able to make people laugh is one of the most valuable traits you can have underwater. Funny men are like gold dust. And as the US Department of War once put it, these people depend on each other. Submarine life is absolutely not for everyone, but if you're suited to it, the camaraderie is something you'll never forget. Boomers don't stop working when they reach port. Each submarine has 2 full crews known as Blue and Gold. While one crew disembarks after a patrol, the other is already preparing to take over the same boat. The handover is quick, supplies are restocked, maintenance is handled, and within weeks the submarine heads back out, often with an entirely different crew aboard. The mission never really ends, only the people rotate. Still, after 70 days on board, no matter how much you like your fellow sailors, you will be desperate to arrive in port. Civilian life feels strange after months of confinement and buzzing sounds in your ears. Driving can be dangerous at first because their eyes are accustomed to tight artificial spaces. The brain slows down on a submarine because it's adapted to an environment with far less stimulation than the outside world. They ease themselves back slowly into a world that they hope to God they are never asked to fire nuclear weapons at. Now go check out the greatest submarine rescue ever, Escaping Sinking Submarine USS Squalus, or click on this video instead.